Joining us now is best-selling author Ryan Sager. Ryan, thank you. Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Kevin, thanks. Great to be here.
Now, we'll just have you move close to the microphone, sir. You're in town. You're doing a book tour. There are so many questions that we have because you have done something that every person that I know wants to do. And you know where I'm going with this, is write a book.
Yes.
Everybody believes they have a book in them.
And they do.
And yet, most of us don't. You're living your dream. How did you make that happen?
Oh, thanks for asking. So, I've always wanted to write a book, just like all the people you're talking about that you know. And I've always kind of worked at it, but it wasn't until I, got married and became a dad, and I had a 5-year-old daughter who was so smart, so charming, and so tenacious that I thought, she's the lead character of a book. And that kind of got me going. The book is called The World's Greatest Chocolate-Covered Pork Chops.
Now, does this have to do with international terrorism?
Nope. It's about a 12-year-old gourmet chef named Zoe Kate, that's my daughter,
okay,
who sets out to start her own 5-star restaurant. So it's about following your dreams. I guess you could say it's a parallel of my own journey to become an author.
How difficult was it for you to follow your dream? You're here. You're back in the Treasure Valley. We'll get to your history. We'll talk about the book. Obviously, faith and family, very important, and teaching folks good manners and such, and ethics and morals and such. But how much of a challenge was it for you?
Oh, man. So to even write a book, I'm not a morning person, but I was getting up at 5 a.m., I was writing on weekends. I was sacrificed so much. When you're up that early, typing away on a story that you don't know if anyone will ever want to read, I can still remember looking outside, the sun's not even up, and thinking, am I crazy? And there were times I wanted to give up. In fact, I would have if it wasn't for my supportive wife, Katie, who would say, I don't know, Ryan, I think you should finish this Chef Zoe story. I think there's something there. Just finishing it, which took me about 3 years just to write it, that in itself was an accomplishment. It's like if no one even reads this, just knowing, okay, because I'm that guy who has a book in me, just like you're saying, right? If I can even just finish this thing, bucket list, check, right? And then when I send it out into the world, and a literary agent at Fuse Literary in California, most are in New York, but one in California said, I get this. I think this is funny. I like the characters. Yeah, we'll go for it. Well, that was just icing on the cake. And then, like 6 months later, when I get a phone call saying, hey, Disney called, they want to publish your book. And I'm thinking, Disney, like, When You Wish Upon a Star Disney, that Disney. I feel so lucky and so blessed to be here.
Ryan Sager joining us, the world's greatest chocolate-covered pork chops. We're going to get into this in-depth team coverage of this title of this book coming up. But we have so many people when they, should they self-publish? And you went the traditional route, which is so tough. Just getting up every morning and, getting the cognitive process going and then typing and then editing. Could you share with us the challenges of editing? Because there's one thing to do stream of conscious, and then to go back after you're mentally, emotionally exhausted, go back and do it again and again. I've read about that, but you've been through the process. Can you take us through that?
Great question. Absolutely. So for me, I love editing because the hardest part is when you have the blank page.
Right.
Sometimes you know exactly where you want the scene to go, but sometimes you don't. But when you first write, sometimes the first draft is just vomit on the page, and it's terrible. Pixar, we all love Pixar. Their screenwriting, their story department has a saying, get it all on the page as fast as you can because you're going to have to change it all anyway. That's how it is for me. So once I have something on the paper, okay, well, now I can take that kind of ugly paragraph and I can actually turn it into something kind of pretty. And, okay, I have these 10 lines of dialogue. I love 2 of those. I'm going to take those 2 out. So it's kind of, for me, that's where I actually start going, well, hey, maybe I have something here. So for me, the revision process is fun, it's freedom, and honestly, I could still be revising the book right now and be perfectly happy to do it. But at some point, you do have to turn it in. For me, it's fun.
Well, Ryan, by the way, a lot of us, and we joke about this here, whether it's our callers or the voices in our head, we have these voices. The challenge, sir, of coming up with dialogue, going back and forth and not only satisfying yourself, but for people that don't know you, don't know your daughter, that, how did you come up with the interaction that they would have?
Oh, thank you. Good question. And one of the tricky things, too, is let's say you have 5 characters in a scene talking. You don't want them all to sound like you. So sometimes I'll give someone an accent based on where they're from, although in print that can be tricky, too. One of my characters, his name is Chef Pao. He was very fun to write. He's a gourmet chef from Shanghai, China. And he's in Chinatown in San Francisco, and a great chef with a great decorated restaurant operation. And when Zoe Kate meets him, she's awestruck. In his case, I actually sat down with a native Chinese woman from Beijing who helped me translate all of his lines into Mandarin, and then we would translate them back into English so that he would be speaking with he was speaking English, of course, but using the speech patterns of Mandarin. With Zoe, I just thought of my daughter, and basically whatever's going on, whatever obstacle you throw at her, she just sees this as, oh, yeah, well, this isn't a big deal. All we have to do is this.
Right.
No matter how crazy. In the first chapter, she's in a bank talking to a banker to get a $50,000 loan.
As a 12-year-old girl.
As a 12-year-old. And to her, she's thinking, well, I'm going to pay it back. What's the big deal? Like, once my restaurant's open,
right,
it's going to be huge. In fact, we're going to have restaurants not just in San Francisco, but we're going to be in London and Paris. But let's start small. We'll just do one city at a time. So that was kind of fun. Her best friend is a character named Dallin, who is influenced a lot by my nephew, Dallin, who's also lives here in Boise. And he is a lot the opposite of Zoe. So if Zoe is a gregarious, larger-than-life talker, he's more of the strong, silent type. That's called a foil. So there's a way to always have them talking. If she's larger than life, he's down to earth. That's one way. Things like that.
Did you have any training on this?
So my background, I've been writing stories my whole life, but I actually went to university to get a degree in music, and that's actually my day job. I work for a company based in Los Angeles. We do music for film and television.
Right.
So I do that too. This is just something I've loved. I've taken classes, but do I have training? No.
Right. This is just all part of your passion. By the way, if you're just tuning in, the world's greatest chocolate-covered pork chops. Ryan K. Sager joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so I am a Boise boy. I grew up here. I went to Frontier Elementary, Low Scott Middle School, Centennial High School. Much of my family is still here. I remember growing up and going to Alive After 5 and dancing to the House of Hoi Polloi. People who grew up in the 90s will know that reference very well. And I currently live in Utah. I love coming back to Boise. It is so good to be here. The people are so nice, and they're wonderful drivers. They let you merge. Boise, I love how you drive.
Now,
thank you.
Is that Salt Lake that you live in?
I live between Salt Lake and Provo in a city called American Fork, and there we don't let people merge. If you were driving,
Salt Lake is pretty challenging traffic.
We're just really selfish drivers.
Well, Ryan, but as a Boise native, as someone who loves this area, has family here, though, what do you think of the changes that have happened in the past, let's say, 5 to 10 years in your hometown Treasure Valley?
Well, I think it's wonderful.
The growth and the traffic?
Well,
is it traffic like you have traffic?
You know what? Well, again, they're nice drivers here. And, I've spent some time in L.A. and then Las Vegas. My wife's from L.A., so I kind of, cover the West pretty well. But being here in Boise, it's wonderful. This is, as we were driving around the downtown area today to get here, it's so beautiful. Like the Simplot Place Jump, it was called, where it looks very modern, but he has some of those kind of more classic, like wagons and engines and things. Such a beautiful city. I'm driving around going, why don't I live here? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll move back.
Are you surprised so many people have discovered your hometown?
I'm not surprised at all. What took you guys so long? It's great. It's such a wonderful community. People are kind. They care about you. We were at Best Buy the other day, and this nice young woman came up to my wife and I think she said, "Hey, I like your shirt." And they just talked for 10 minutes, and now they're friends. My wife said, if we lived here, I would have got that girl's number, and we'd be having dinner with them. Boise people are wonderful, and anyone who comes here knows it.
Ryan, let's get back to living your dream and such. And where can people meet you and get your book?
So I'm visiting schools this week. This Saturday from 11 to 1, I will be at the Idaho Book Fair's warehouse. I'll be signing books if you want to come by. Say hi, bring a sandwich, we'll have lunch.
Now, are you on Facebook and all that sort of thing?
I sure am. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not active there, but my book is active. So I have a Facebook page. If you look me up, Ryan K. Sager, you'll find my Pork Chops book page. Yes.
Okay, that because a lot of people are listening and they don't have time to write this down. Obviously, they want to meet you. Can you hang for another segment?
Love to.
All right, more coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Waking up on the right side, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Ryan Sager joining us, author, man of the world. I'm looking at your bio, and we were talking about this off there. I have to share it with the audience here on KIDO Talk Radio. Ryan K. Sager is a guy who wrote a book, this book. He wrote this author blurb too, used third person for some reason. After surviving a bus hijacking in Venezuela, a precarious commute in Puerto Rico, and drinking tap water in Southern California, Ryan moved to Utah. You have to share with us what happened in Venezuela.
Well, great. So I was down there on a church service mission for 2 years. It was wonderful. And in that particular case, Venezuela, which is a beautiful country full of wonderful people who love life, and they have beautiful metropolis cities. But when you travel on a bus between the cities, sometimes you'll go through miles and miles of just a road through the jungle. So a hijacker could get on in one city. Then once you're about halfway between cities, they can stand up, take out a gun, rob everyone on the bus, and there's not much we can do. And then they tell the driver to stop. They'll hop off, disappear into the jungle, never see them again.
Now, again, you make that sound like my trip to the Golden Corral. You're on a mission with your church from Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
On this bus in the middle of the jungle, a lot of green. And how frightened were you, sir?
You know, it was a pretty exciting 2 years, so it wasn't that crazy. What was weird was they play music really loud in their buses. So there's like a salsa song playing or something. And they also listen to a lot of like UB40. For some reason, that band was huge. So they have you put your heads down, and then there's one guy out the front with a pretty big gun, and then there's another guy going through raiding everyone's bags. But what's crazy is I remember kind of looking up a little bit, and you see every passenger like this, and you can see the driver. And so there's kind of intense situations going on. But then the music's just like boom, jank, jank, boom, jank, boom, jank, boom, jank.
Right.
It's like this doesn't. Tell the driver to put on some suspenseful music or something.
Right.
This does not fit. My biggest worry was I had a bunch of letters from family and friends that I just received and hadn't read yet, and all I wanted was to not get those taken from me.
Sure.
And he didn't. But no, I didn't feel that worried, and no one on the bus got hurt. But I remember there was one guy on the bus, this poor guy. He had I don't want to say it was his life savings, but for some reason he had a crazy amount of money that I think he was going to a bank to go buy, and they took it from him and ruined his life. I remember he was just devastated. Muy triste.
How did your mission impact you?
Oh, man, it did everything. It taught me responsibility. It also kind of taught me to always think about the bigger picture. For example, this book, a student yesterday asked me, "Are you proud of yourself for writing this?" And I said, "Yes, I am. But more than that, I'm grateful. If there's anything in my life that I want to be proud of, it would be being a good husband and a good father, good neighbor. I do value my relationship with God. I believe that's something real, and I try to nurture that. So the book is fun. It's exciting. It is a dream come true. But if it all went away, if I woke up tomorrow and it wasn't here, I'd hug my wife and my daughter and say, hey, life's pretty good.
Now, what about the Puerto Rico thing?
So I was down there selling alarm systems. Did that for a summer.
Now, hold on. Wait a minute. Mission in Venezuela.
Yeah.
You're a music guy.
Yeah.
You're a writer now, but you were selling alarm systems in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
It doesn't fit the narrative. I mean, you're a writer. I mean,
in fact, I wanted to study marketing at school, and then I went down to Puerto Rico for summer to sell. And part of the reason I did it was because we could sell in Espanol, and I like speaking Spanish. It's a lot of fun. And swinging from vines and going to the beach and things, so It's great. But I hated selling so bad that I went home and said, I'm not going to do marketing. I'm going to do music, and I'm going to try to write books. So in a way, that was kind of what made me realize what I didn't want to do. I didn't like sales.
Ryan K. Sager joining us, the world's greatest chocolate-covered pork chops. You and I were sharing stories off the air for a moment. You were sharing stories. I was listening. And to let everybody here at KIDO Talk Radio understand how much of an accomplishment this is, and for people just tuning in, we'll talk a little bit about the great John Grisham. When he wrote his books, he was rejected. There is such to be a writer, to not only put in the time in. You know, I was talking to years ago this guy, Major Garrett. He's a big guy with CBS, with Fox, and he, like you, would get up in the morning before he would go to work and put in a couple of hours, and then at night a couple of hours. It sounds a lot better, except when you're the actual person doing it. And then on his weekends, while his family was having a good time, he was writing in this project that he, at the time, only believed in. And then you send out the query letters and everything else. I mean, John Grisham was rejected a lot, and yet here you are. You get signed. Now Disney is publishing your book. Divine intervention, the planets aligning in the right way. How would you describe the process?
Good question. So there's a little bit of both. So one thing that I would say to anyone who wants to go on this particular industry is the thing that impressed me was that when an agent, like when I was querying literary agents, they're the ones they're like a sports agent. They take, instead of you as a player, they're taking your product, shopping it to publishers. They were very sincere and thoughtful people, meaning they weren't just like they would basically look at this, is this a client I could help? I had some even say, some just didn't respond, and some it was a very just clerical, formal rejection, and that comes. But then some would say, this sounds really fun. I just don't represent this kind of client, for example. When we went to publishers, I found the same thing. The publishing industry, as kind of, it's all in New York City, and as big and scary as it is with the high rises and people in hurries and all that, we're very sincere, thoughtful people. Sometimes one publisher that passed on this work was Little Brown. They're the people who published Twilight, for example. That's probably...
Little Brown is big.
They're big, yeah.
Even to get a meeting with them, Ryan.
Yes. And they read the book, and they responded and just said, we've published a cooking book before, a book about cooking, and it didn't do well, so we're not going to do that again. But we really like how Ryan wrote, and we would love to read more, which sounds kind of like a really polite rejection. But my agent said they don't just send this. Like, it's usually just a real yes or no, but for them to even say that is kind of cool. Once I got the publishing deal and I got on the phone, my editor is Kieran Viola at Disney Hyperion in New York. And her team are people who love books and they want it to be great. In fact, they even went as far as they hired a professional chef to create recipes based on the recipes that I made up in the book. And these are crazy recipes. These are recipes like smeeze cake, which is a combination of s'mores and cheesecake, and chocolate-covered pork chops. That's a real dish. The recipe is in the book. My wife made it. She's a great cook. She made a delicious chocolate-covered pork chops. I've eaten it. So you have all these people proofreading it, agonizing over, is this the right title? Is this the right way to start a chapter? Is this artwork good enough? So there is rejection, yes, but behind the doors of people rejecting you are a whole swarm of people who love books, and they want your book to be as good as possible. So lots of rejection, but there's a real humanity to it that was inspiring.
Where did your belief come from that to stay with it?
Oh, man.
Amidst the rejection.
That's a great question. Of course, as I've said before, it helps to have a support system.
Right.
In that case, it was my wife. I also went in just knowing there's a lot of rejection. So when you know that, when you get a rejection, you don't take it personally. You just know, hey, this is part and parcel of the game. So we just went into it. And then as far as what makes you stick with it, what else am I going to do? We're all living every day. We're all getting older every day. Life is sweet, but we can, whether we're pursuing our dream or not, life's passing us by. So sometimes it was just that logic of, let's just go for it. And you know what? I wanted it. I still want it because I love it. It's fun. I love getting wrapped up in a good story or a good book.
Sure.
And I think we all do. It's fun.
Well, congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you. I feel very fortunate, and thank you for having me here. This was fun.
Well, don't be a stranger. We want you to keep us updated on everything, would you?
You betcha. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. The world's greatest chocolate-covered pork chops, Ryan K. Sager. One more time, Ryan, where are you going to be so if people want to come see you?
This Saturday at the Idaho Book Fair's warehouse from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This Saturday, April 6th.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Out to Jeff Manasso, Fox News Radio.